Continue with the spinal cord. Externally, if you see the spinal cord, it shows the two fusiform swellings. This one first, this is second fusiform swelling. The first is the second. Actually, there is an extra load on the spinal cord to supply the upper and lower limb. So when there is extra neuron required, the number of the neuron increases in these regions in order to supply the muscles of upper and lower limb. So brachial plexus, which supply the upper limb, extend from C3 to T2 level. That is the origin of the brachial plexus arise. So name is given upper limb swelling externally. Then thoracic region that give intercostal nerves and not need of the to be swollen and sufficient neuron present to supply the intercostal spaces. Then again an extra load on the spinal cord to supply the muscles of a lot of muscle of the lower limb. So it again swell up due to increase in number of neurons, and it extend from, because the lumbosacral plexus that supply the lower limb, so swelling extend from L1 to S3. Lumbosacral plexus, this is the root value of the lumbosacral plexus, and it swell up. In the lower part, terminal part of the spinal cord, it is conical, and name is given Cornus Medullaris. So because it end at the lower border of L1, the other nerves L2, L3, L4, L5, S1, S2, S3, S4, 5 and coccygeal, that has to travel down from this level in order to pass out from the intervertebral foramina. So gathering of the nerve roots around the conus medullaris, name is given cauda equina, together, whereas the conical end is conus medullaris. Cauda equina resemble the tail of the horse. If you look upon the tail of the horse, it is the same shape. From the conus medullaris, a filamentous structure which is attached above to the conus medullaris, below to coccyx 1 vertebra. Name is given phylum terminale. It holds the spinal cord in position and is the connective tissue element. Basically, it is a pia-mater through which the spinal cord descends, and the rest of the pia change into phylum terminale. So come back that in cervical region, it gave origin to the brachial plexus, and that forms the fusiform swelling present, extend from C3 to T2 for upper limb, whereas the lumbosacral plexus arises from the fusiform swelling extending from L1 to S3 to supply the lower limb. So-called cervical and lumbar enlargements. Upper is cervical, lower is the lumbar enlargements. Spinal cord on transverse section is composed of his inner gray matter, which is surrounded by white matter, whereas in brain it is reverse, that the gray is out, white is inside, but in spinal cord the gray is in and white is outside. The portion of the spinal cord giving a pair of spinal nerves is called segment of spinal cord, as shown. Say this is a small portion which is giving on each side a spinal nerve, right and left. So together they form a pair of nerve. That part, because their nerve arises as or terminate as many rootlets. So junction of the two rootlets, this is the lower nerve, this is the upper, this is the junction. If you draw an imaginary line over here and above that, that becomes the portion of spinal cord from which the pair of spinal nerve arises. So this portion, one portion from which the one pair of spinal nerve arises, name is given segment. Because there are 31 pair of spinal nerves, so spinal cord itself divided into 31 segments. There is no definite line over here, but line drawn at the junction of the upper nerve rootlets and the lower nerve rootlets at this level, where there is upper rootlets and lower rootlets meet. You draw this imaginary line, and this imaginary line above similarly drawn, and that become a portion of the spinal cord which is giving a pair of spinal nerve. The name is given segment of spinal cord. There are 31 segments of spinal cord. So spinal cord on transverse section is composed of inner gray matter which is surrounded by white matter. Portion of the spinal cord giving a pair of spinal nerves is called segment of the spinal cord. Total 31 segments and 31 pairs of spinal nerves. That is cervical 8 segments. Although vertebrae are 7 cervical, but segments of the spinal cord are 8 because C8 nerve is also there. C1 nerve passes between the skull and C1 vertebra. So in this way they become 8 segment passing, giving the 8 cervical nerves instead of 7 cervical vertebrae. First passes between the skull and C1. So in this way they are accommodated. C8, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, 5 sacral, and 1 to 2 coccygeal pair of spinal nerve, as well as these are the segments of the spinal cord. Gray matter of spinal cord on cross section. The gray matter is H shape with anterior and posterior gray columns. Are horns united by horizontal limb, a thin gray commissure. A lateral gray column or horn is present in the thoracic and upper lumbar segments. This is the posterior horn, this one from here up to here, this one. This is the posterior horn. This one is the lateral horn, and this is the anterior horn. These are 3 horns. Lateral horn is omnipresent in thoracic and upper lumbar segments, that is T1 to L2, which means 14 segments, 12 thoracic and 2 lumbar. If you take section in the thoracic region of spinal cord, lateral horn is present in every segment of thoracic segment. It also exists in L1, L2 segments. The dorsal root, which is sensory root, enter the dorsal horn. Lateral horn is autonomic, and the anterior horn give the ventral root or motor root. Posterior horn receives sensory impulses of what? Temperature, pain, touch, pressure, vibration, and proprioceptive, deep joint sensation. Lateral horn present in T1 to L2 level, giving preganglionic sympathetic fibers which follow the ventral roots. So this is the lateral horn which is shown, and it gives the preganglionic autonomic fibers which follow the ventral root. Anterior horn, the motor nerve, giving the motor fibers which form the ventral nerve roots and supply the skeletal muscle. This is the Rexed classification. Rexed classify gray matter into 10 lamina. Uh, Tract SOP. Next. ये अच्छे नहीं. Rexed classification. Rexed classified gray matter into 10 components or 10 laminae. Parts of the posterior horn are apex. This is the shape of posterior horn. Conical apex, broader head, then narrow neck, and again broader base. So 4 components of the posterior horn by shape, that is the more posteriorly apex, then next is the head, then is the neck, then is the base. Lateral horn is as such present laterally. Anterior horn has base and head only, 2 parts. Rexed classified different nuclei in these components. What he classified that apex has 2 group of nuclei, that is the number 1 and number 2. They are written in Roman letters. This is very essential, strictly, not in other letters. So 1 and 2, first and 2 group of nuclei present in apex. It receives the head is lamina 3 and 4. That is 2 group are present in the head. The lamina 5 is 5th group is in the neck. 6th group is in the base of the posterior horn. So which means lamina 1 to 6 are present in posterior horn, 2 in apex, 2 in head, 1 is in the neck, 1 is in the base. So they are total Rexed classified that the total 10 lamina. Out of 10 there are 6 lamina present, or 6 group of nuclei present in the posterior horn, confined to posterior horn. Posterior horn whole is sensory, that receives sensory impulses. From where? From the dorsal root ganglia. Dorsal root ganglia, its dendrites, bring the message from body. 6 sensations, that is temperature, pain, touch, pressure, vibration, and proprioceptive. The proprioceptive joint sensation that is brought to the neurons of the ganglia. Then its axon, they carry the message to different laminae of posterior horn. Say lamina 1 and 2 receive sensation of temperature, pain. Lamina 3 and 4 receive sensation of touch, pressure, and vibration. And lamina 5 and 6 receive proprioceptive impulses. So they are separately identified and received from dorsal root. This is bringing 6 sensations. So temperature, pain in lamina 1, 2, 3 and 4, touch, pressure, vibration. 5 is the proprioceptive, 6 is proprioceptive impulses. Now, what is the posterior horn? It's a collection of neurons. Obviously, each neuron has dendrites and axon, like this, they are shown. These are dendrites, these are the axon. This one is the axon of the posterior horn. These dendrites receive the fibers of dorsal root. So dorsal root is not a single fiber, there are multiple fibers of carrying the separately 6 sensations, and they terminate to their own lamina. So the fiber of dorsal root snaps with dendrites of the posterior horn, and from the neurons of the posterior horn give axons which ascend upward in the spinal cord to the brain, and name is given ascending tracts. So ascending tracts are what? Collection of the axons of the posterior horn. Posterior horn neurons, their axon, they form the ascending tracts. So ascending tracts, if we say what is the origin of ascending tracts, pain and temperature tracts from lamina 1 to touch pressure vibration tracts lamina 3 4, and proprioceptive tracts lamina 5 and 6. So this is the origin of these tracts, and you have to write about the where they terminate. Sensory tracts, the almost terminate in the thalamus. Thalamus is the major sensory station. So while describing the ascending tracts, it is easy to now conclude that lamina 1 and 2 give origin to temperature and lamina 1 and 2 temperature and pain, 3 and 4 touch pressure vibration tracts, their origin is 3 4, proprioceptive 5 and 6, and termination in thalamus. Lamina 7 is lateral horn, autonomic fiber which give, these give preganglionic, these are the preganglionic sympathetic fiber, follow the mental root. Lamina 7 is autonomic horn. The base of the anterior horn is lamina 8, head is lamina 9. Lamina 8 receive fiber from brain. The brain neurons, they give fiber down to the spinal cord and terminate on the lamina 8. So those fibers which are given by the brain and terminate on the lamina 8, name is given descending tracts, which mean descending tracts are motor, whereas ascending tracts all are sensory, which carry the 6 sensation message by different tracts. Their tract for pain and temperature is different. Tract from the head is different, the touch pressure vibration, and the tract from the that is the proprioceptive is different ascending tract. The lateral horn that give preganglionic sympathetic fiber which follow the mental root. The motor fiber which arise from lamina 9. Lamina 9 dendrite receive message from lamina 8, and then its axon they pass out as ventral root. So what is, if we say descending tract, first name is from brain nucleus, that give the descending fiber. Termination of descending tract is mostly on lamina 7, lamina 8 and lamina 9. That is the end of the descending tract. So word used for ascending tract first is spino, that is from the dorsal horn of the spinal cord, from any of this lamina. And second word used where it terminate, for example spinothalamic tract, which mean ascending tract. Spinothalamic is ascending tract because first word is spino, other is the brain, that is thalamus. In descending tract, first name is brain and second is spinal. For example, descending tract fiber coming from cerebral cortex, name is given corticospinal, and corticospinal arise from cortex, terminate lamina 8 and 9. So very easy to remember the origin and termination of the tracts is, origin is depend on the nature of the tract, temperature pain from lamina 1 to touch pressure vibration from lamina 3, 4, proprioceptive from lamina 5 and 6, and end in thalamus. Whereas here the first name is of brain, like cortex, red nucleus, and the vestibular nuclei. Second is spinal. Spinal and termination is lamina 7 and 9. Posterior horn includes lamina 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. It is sensory horn, receives sensation from the body via dorsal root. Lamina 1 and 2 receive temperature and pain sensation. Lamina 3 and 4 receive touch, pressure and vibration sensation. Lamina 5 and 6 receive proprioceptive impulses. Axons of the neurons of these laminae give ascending tracts. Lateral horn, lamina 7 give preganglionic sympathetic fibers which follow the ventral root. Anterior horn, lamina 8 receive motor fibers from the brain. Lamina 9 or head give motor fibers through ventral root to join the dorsal root to form the spinal nerve. This one and this one is the anterior funiculus. This is the dorsal root, this is the ventral root. This in between them, this white matter is, name is given lateral funiculus, and this one is the dorsal root, this is also dorsal root. In between them, this one, this as well as this together form the posterior column or posterior funiculus. Anterior funiculus between two ventral roots. Lateral funiculus between ventral and dorsal root, this one ventral and this is the dorsal. Posterior funiculus between two dorsal roots. This one is the dorsal, this is also dorsal. White matter consists of mixture of, what is the definition of white matter? Mixture of the nerve fibers, neuroglia and blood vessels. You must know that the nervous system has two types of cells only, that is the neurons and neuroglia. So it is not the neurons over here, it is the nerve fibers, which is the axons of the neurons, collection of the axon plus neuroglia and blood vessels. Nerve fiber in white matter are arranged in specific groups which connect inside CNS to spinal cord to brain and from brain to spinal cord. So-called tracts. Tracts actually confined to the CNS, not connect outside CNS. They connect one part of the brain with the other part of the CNS. So-called tracts. The spinal tracts are divided into ascending, as I told you, sensory tract, descending, which are motor, and third variety is intersegmental tracts, which connect the different segments with each other. Ascending tracts of the spinal cord. Fibers which ascend from the spinal cord to brain called ascending tracts. Their sensory tracts carry 6 general sensation message from body to the brain. They are the axons from the VPL nucleus pass through the brain to reach the synesthetic area in postcentral gyrus of cerebral cortex. Axon from the VPL nucleus pass through the brain to reach the synesthetic area in postcentral gyrus of cerebral cortex. This tract ascends in lateral funiculus of spinal cord. Axons enter the anterior spinothalamic tract. Axon enter the spinal cord from posterior root ganglia, pass to lamina 1 of the posterior gray horn. These fibers cross to opposite side within the spinal segments, ascend in the anterior funiculus of spinal cord as anterior spinothalamic tract. This tract joins the lateral spinothalamic tract to form the spinal lemniscus. This tract passes through pons to terminate into VPL nucleus of thalamus. Finally, these fibers reach the synesthetic area in postcentral gyrus.